Stop smashing, maybe that.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the council meeting on Wednesday the 17th of March, which also happens to be St Patrick's Day, and no doubt there will be plenty of people celebrating that tonight of the that descent. Just welcome you councillors, staff, media, and all those who are listening in from home. Call for apologies, please. And we also have two members on Zoom, Councillor Rawlinson and Councillor Lovett. Welcome also. Any apologies with everyone's here? Extraordinary business, I know of none. Any other extraordinary business? None. Declarations of interest on any matters in today's agenda? None. We'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting the 3rd of March, and we'll have any alterations or additions first on page 3. Page 4. I'm on paper copy. Is your Stella lighting up the same? Page 5.
Excuse me.
Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 4, there was a question asked the last time regarding an S17A review, and officers will advise the elderly person housing, just under there. Is that been done?
Is that now item number 10?
Yes, correct.
The council receives the report. Council directs office to draft the policy.
No, 2017.
Well, okay. Shall we, you think it's not correct or needs changing?
They would advise us. So
Okay,
we'll
we'll just,
when it's getting done more.
We'll just pass the minutes first as accurate, and then we'll go after that for advising on that one. Page 5. Give a move in a second. That's the true and accurate record of that meeting. Councillor McMillan, Councillor Brown, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Councillor Brown now. Clarification was sought on whether financial sustainability was looked at when the S17A review was undertaken in 2017. Officers will advise. That's the question you have. Yes. Paul, have you got an answer for that at the moment?
Could you repeat the question?
Clarification was sought on whether financial sustainability was looked at when the Section 17A review was undertaken in 2017. We're talking about elderly persons housing. Officers will advise.
I'm sorry, I haven't got that information for you.
She'll make note and come back to it and get the answer. We'll circulate that answer. Okay. Move, we second and put the motion, and we're now moving on to item number 5 in the reports and the long-term plan 2131 consultation document, and we have a recommendation there, but first we'll have Emily and Tony to answer questions first. Or Tony, do you have anything to add, or just go straight to questions?
Thank you. I'll just give you a quick update. So what's being circulated now is literally hot off the press. It's just come back from design. So that incorporates the final changes that audit required about 5:30 last night. So this is the consultation document as it currently stands. The audit opinion was received this morning. We have received a qualified audit opinion around our thinking with the second bridge and around the 29% of government funding that's sitting in there. The audit opinion has also given us an emphasis of matter on 3 water reform, but they're doing that across all councils given that there's so much uncertainty with 3 water reforms at this stage. So that's where we're sitting. Happy to take any questions from here.
Questions, councillors? Got questions on the document? Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Page 9. A prosperous economy based on innovation and opportunity. Housing affordability will try to. Rental affordability will try. Unemployment rate trends. If the government can't do this, how on earth are we going to do it? To me, why put it in the document? We've got no say over housing affordability or renting affordability. It's well beyond anything the council can do.
Thank you, through the chair. So this is relating to our community outcomes, which link back to the wellbeing of our community. And so on discussion with council, rather than have community outcomes that sat in isolation, we wanted to have some, they're less targets, but they're just measures for us to be able to keep a track of how well the community's doing. Councillor Wilson, you're completely right. We can't control what's happening with the GDP, housing affordability, but we can certainly keep an eye as a council on what's happening for our community and our district and react if there's anything that we can do to assist with that. So it's less a performance, it's not a performance measure for us to achieve as a council, rather we want to keep a track and monitor what's happening in those spaces as trend data.
Supplementary.
Yep.
Page 13, regarding the Three Waters reform. September to December 21, councils opt in to multi-regional groupings and begin the planning. It says in the next sentence whether we go in or not, but we're not planning to opt in at this stage. We haven't even thought about whether we opt in or out.
Hamish?
The decision whether we do or not will essentially be in that time frame. So the reality is the reform is going to have the Ashburton District Council included in one of the new entities, and we will have the decision, this council will have the decision whether to opt out or not. The reality is you will have the choice to opt out.
Supplementary, page 17. Drinking water meters. In the box, we do not plan to charge for water in this draft 10-year plan. That's one statement. But in the future, the funding will be reviewed in 3 years' time. In other words, we might. In other words, we're saying we're not, but we might. What do we really mean?
Thank you, through the chair. So this has been a topic of conversation with audit, would be an honest statement. We initially didn't have that last part of that statement in there, but they were quite rightly pointing out that a future council in 3 years' time will be redoing their LTP process and looking at our revenue and finance policy again, and a future council may decide to do that. And so they felt that was a more honest and transparent statement for our community.
Hamish? Well, I'll ask a question there. Are we not preempting what another council might do? Because we don't know what another council might do. But this council is not going to charge for water, as this statement says.
Yep, certainly in the statement above that box, we do make it expressly clear that we don't intend to charge ordinary water users, as in this term of council. But audit weren't going to let us away with just leaving it at that.
Stuart, Angus has got a question on the same one of yours is finished.
I've got another question on...
Different one?
Yep.
Come back.
Do you want to continue?
Yep.
With the water?
Angus's question's on water, I think. Angus? No. Sorry, Caroline, you on water?
No, I'm on elderly persons housing.
Okay, who's on water? Angus. So if the others could go off.
Should I turn off?
Yes.
We turn off.
Yes. Angus.
Is this our document?
Yes.
So if this is our document, can we then have do not plan in bold type and then audit's opinion in brackets? Because I'm getting the distinct feeling that audit are throwing their weight around here. Sure, they can, because they're New Zealand audit, but that's their opinion. Our decision is no charging for water through the meters. Is that possible? Those two suggestions I made.
Certainly the first one is possible. I can see nothing wrong with bolding a part of the document at our own decision. Labelling something audit's opinion is not possible. This is our document. It's going out as our statement. The audit office makes their views on its appropriateness and its fairness to communicating with the community, but we can't label parts of it as audit opinion and parts of it not, because it is our document. Okay. What we are advising you is that the audit office will accept that as being fair. That's the process we've just been through. To make a change will mean presumably we won't be able to adopt this today, and we'll be going back to the audit office, and our entire consultation process will be under query, I would have thought.
Okay, so Mr Mayor, I read this. We do not plan to charge for water in this draft 10-year plan, but the future funding of water will be reviewed in 3 years' time. To me, that makes it quite plain that it will be reviewed. And if I was a normal householder out there, I would jump to a conclusion, I would think.
And through the
Conclusion is not what we intend to have happen, unfortunately.
And through the consultation process, the householder can tell us that in 3 years' time we don't want to be charged for water, which we can put into our final document.
I sincerely hope they do.
Yep.
But not happy. That sentence.
Agree and accept that you're not happy, and Councillor Wilson's not happy with it either. But to get this document out for consultation, we need to do that, and they can submit. I'll go to Carolyn and then come back to you, Stuart. Yep, Carolyn?
I have two questions, if that's possible, please. The first one is actually on the civic building. We've got the new library.
What page you on?
Beg your pardon, on the graph, page 24 on this. The new library, 49 million. I thought it increased the contingency and made a total of 56 million for the new library and civic centre.
Through Mr Mayor, the expenditure in the LTP is after the remaining expenditure after 30 June this year. So it's estimated how much we're going to spend up to 30 June this year, and then it's the balance that's shown in the LTP.
Thank you. Thank you. And the next issue, I have a few, but I'll just stick with this, was the elderly person's housing.
Page.
I have to find it. Oh, and I've also got a question on the bridge too. It's got that it's going to come down, as the rental increases, it's going to come down to about 930,000. It'll then be neutral to
Page 22.
Yeah, it's about page 22. I don't remember that figure, and when I look in our document, I can see that that's not the figure. Can I just have some, it's probably a simple explanation, but can I have some understanding of that, please, from somebody?
Tony.
Through the chair, I'll answer that as best I can. I'm not the financial wizard in the background, though, sorry. As I understand it, these are pulling from the updated budgets as a result of the report that was adopted last week, and with it, as Zane explained it last week, that point where the general rate will no longer be needed and the activity will be back to being self-sustaining. And so that's what that number is showing there, but we can go and find out some.
So at 900,000, it's self-sustaining. About it, 1.82 minus 930. 890,000 or something, isn't it?
So 930,000 less what?
Less is needed. We're going to raise an extra 1.82 million across the 10 years, meaning 930,000 less is needed from the general rate.
Yes, that's if you go, sorry, through the chair, that's if you go with that option, and that is to increase the rents more slowly than what the preferred option is saying. Okay,
thank you. So if we go above to the self-sustaining in 6 years, it's 1.96, meaning 1.03 less is needed from the general rate by 26-27. So it's funded by self-sustaining by 26-27. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Can I have your indulgence, Mr Mayor, for one more question?
Yep, go for it.
With regards to the bridge, if I may ask.
Page.
It's in a picture here. I only got this recently.
I can come back to you if you want.
I'm on a roll. Infrastructure. Here we are, page 27. I understand the explanation, and I accept the explanation. I understood from recent documentations with regards to the NZTA press releases that although it wasn't announced that the second bridge would be coming, it's still in the plan. There was a press release.
Yeah, and your question is?
Is that the case?
This document has been prepared on the basis of what we know, and that is that the 51% funding available from Waka Kotahi is still on the table.
So we know that.
Yes, that's what this document has to be based on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tony, just a simple question. If I go to page 8, it tells me have a question, please see page 1. Page 1 is the front page. What does it explain to me?
Thank you. Through the chair. Great pick up, Councillor Brown.
And they are
We are
all-
doing the final
they-
sense
They
check
are all over.
with the page numbers.
There's a page
Should say page
30 as
2.
well. There's quite a bit.
Yep. Yes, we do know that the page numbers have to have that final
Oh,
sense
which
check.
page is it on?
So this one, page 2.
Thank you.
Can you make a submission?
Email.
If you have any questions, go to page 1. It says it's wrong, it should be go to page 2.
Yeah, that'll, yeah,
Page 2.
it's sorted, yeah. No one can hear you at home, Roger. Stuart?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Following on where Councillor Cameron says, on page 22, we're going to spend 930,000 or, no, 930,000 or 93,000. If you look up on our last council meeting, it said we're going to spend 78,000 21-22, 39,000 22-23, 970 23-24. What's this talk about 27-28? It's a total of 118,788. That's what we passed at the last council meeting. Now suddenly it pops up at 930,000. I'm not going to approve this document if that's the sort of figures we've got.
So you're in option 1 or 2?
Both are wrong. Yeah, I've got the figures here.
Tony? Any,
Through the chair, this has been based on what the updated budgets were as a result of that Section 17A report. It looks like there might be some inconsistencies between what the report was saying versus what's in the budget, but I'm hanging my hat on what's on the budget because that's been audit checked.
and what's in the budget has flowed through to here?
Yes, it has.
Yeah. So this should be accurate.
Yes.
But we haven't approved it. We approved 118,000 at the last council meeting.
Hamish?
I think we need to check before we adopt this consultation document. We need to give you the clarity you're seeking.
Can we get that today?
Have to
Have to.
do it now.
So we could take all the questions here today, park that little section, and hopefully by the time we get to the end of this meeting, we'll have the answer?
Yep.
Okay. And I think Diane's coming in from wherever? Diane?
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can? Great.
Coming in from Milestone. Now, we did get a quick speed read of the document this morning. I'm not sure what page it is, but it's about the bridge. And my question is, we're quoting, I think, 37 million, it said, for the bridge. But my question is, why are we continuing to use a 10-year-old figure? That is the figure that Otis put out in 2010, and we've never updated it, and we know how costs escalate. So that's my question, as to why we continue to use that amount.
I thought the bridge was 32 the last time I saw it, so it has probably been adjusted, but
Through the chair, this has the inflated figure.
it has been inflated, Diane, do you hear that?
By 2 million. Because originally in 2010, I
30.
always talked and we have continued to follow through on 35 million for the bridge. That's the figure that I've always challenged. But today when I saw that, I realised we got 37, but I still don't think we got it high enough. But anyway, that's just the comment I wanted to make.
Yeah. As it works through the business case, which is being worked on, a better costing will come out of that. But we've got to start with a figure, and 37 is it at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Stuart?
Is page 24, capital in the next 10 years. Transportation doesn't warrant a mention to year 4 until you get away over to the right here unsealed road maintenance, unsealed maintenance, repairs, grading, potholes, etc., 2.4 million over 3 years. But you turn over the page the other way,
Back, you mean?
on page 27, you get 3.5 on re-gravelling our metal roads alone. So there's the figures are sort of very, very confusing. And why is no roading or no transport capital in those first 3 years put in the first page graph? It's blank.
Through the chair, this is what we've pulled out of the budget in terms of the renewal and the projects that is sitting there right now. I can go away and find out some better answers if you like from Brian and the team, but I can certainly be happy to send you the background spreadsheets if needed.
Okay, so we might be able to get that for a little bit later. Stuart, another
And my final thing, I'm not 46 pages. It took me quite a while to try and digest what's there, and I had a reasonable idea what was coming. Do you think our ratepayers are going to look at a 46-page coloured document? It's going to get to about page 5 and it's going to be binned. It's just that complicated and that huge. Why not have a simple 6 or 8 page thing, so simple that people can read it and understand what they're doing? I think we've just gone completely over the top.
question is, I think, can it be squeezed down?
Thank you. Through the chair, we have done all the squeezing we can. If we don't have all this information in, we don't get a legal consultation document as per legislation. And sorry, I can, just with regard to the transportation question, I guess, do you want to answer that?
Richard, you'll have to come right up to the speaker.
Just in regard to Councillor Wilson's question a moment ago about no roading capital, no transport capital, that's because that diagram is about new capital. So it shows the second bridge investment, but our capital prior to that is capital renewal. So it's distinguishing new projects from effectively renewing existing assets.
Thanks for that clarification. You'll have to wait for Caroline.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a quick question. Is this going out in hard copy to every house in the district?
Yes, it is.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Stuart?
It still doesn't explain on page 25 with the transportation. Unsealed maintenance repairs, 2.4 million over 3 years. Does that mean we're going to spend it over 3 years, the next 3 and the next 3, multiplied by 3? Or how do you explain sealed maintenance repairs 5.1 over 3 years? Does that start at year 1 or does it not start at year 1? Or is it only on year 7, 8 and 9?
Thank you. Through the chair. No, I can certainly clarify that. So the roading program is built on a 3-year basis and with the NZTA confirmation and the funding that's sought from them. So I guess that was saying this is what we have put into NZTA is, and we're hoping that we'll get the confirmed subsidy for that program. We know that it will continue over and above that 3 years, but that's for year 1 to 3. So perhaps we could just change that to say that it's really clear from years 1 to 3.
Okay, Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I just have a question on the submission form at the end, and it's just about the hearings, and I think it's great that you've included the morning, afternoon, evening boxes, and also I intend to present in person and virtually, and I know this was a question that was asked at the Methven ratepayers meeting, if people could Zoom in the evening. So is that going to be the case? We will have evening virtual or Zoom meetings where people are able to speak to their submission?
Through the chair, yes, in short, it is. We've got the technology, we know that it works, and we will see if we get uptake by offering the evening session or not.
Right, thank you.
Just clarification on virtually. We use Zoom, but there's other methods you can use too. Can they use any method? Are we capable of handling that, or do they need to use Zoom?
I'll have to double check with our comms and our IS people. Typically we use Zoom or Teams, is pretty readily available to us, but we can use Skype. I know that we can just do that through a different browser. We would probably try and keep it consistent though. If we were having a run of people virtually joining us, it's easier if they're all using the same platform.
Yep. Councillor Cameron.
Through the chair, Tony, parks and open spaces on the graph on page 24. When I look at the Walnut Avenue Promenade, 812,000, I've just gone through the open spaces, the plan. Does that actually include the fitness equipment, or what does that include? Or is that just the ceiling of a dual cycle walkway?
Just through the chair, no, it only includes the promenade, the physical structure itself, the meandering pathway and any other structures associated with that.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question,
Yep.
please?
Yep.
So how come it's taking, is that year 1 to year 3? So I'm assuming that's a 2-year duration to do that footpath, is that correct?
Over those 2 financial years.
Yes.
Oh, so it'll be like, it just crosses the end of the April cut-off or July? Or
Correct.
Okay, so it's like 3 months or 6 months or
Could be.
Yeah, thank you.
Angus?
Mr. Chairman, yes, I guess the question I have is the languages that we use, is that subject to legislation? Because we do have a very high proportion of people in our district that are also of another language. Should we have not used 3 maybe instead of 2?
Could you name that language?
Filipino.
Right.
I asked the question because when we did the numbers for deciding some years ago, when we did the numbers, looking at whether the question of a Maori ward or not, we actually found that another population was sitting right in behind them. Another speaking group was sitting right in behind them, and that's why I'm asking the question, because numerically we have the information that we have the Filipino group sitting there and behind our native tongue. So I'm not saying anything should be taken out, I'm just wondering if something should have been added in.
And are we bound to put that in? Tony?
Thank you, through the chair. So we have included some te reo phrases in here to recognise the tiriki of Waitangi. It's something we've talked about as a team, is at what point do we start producing material in a range of different languages, because we are getting more diverse as a community. Up to this point we've never presented anything in any language but English, but I think this is the first of a step change where we do have available further information coming into that. In terms of making a change at this point in time, I'm not confident I'd be able to get any translation done for the Filipino community within the next 24 hours.
Councillor Brown?
More a comment than a question, if I can.
Do you want to move into, someone like to move the consultation document, then we go into debate mode?
No.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, make a comment, Lane. Yep. Oh, you'll have to line up now. Councillor Flynn?
Yeah, just a question. I don't have any problem with the consultation document, just so long as council officers are confident in themselves that the figures are correct and we're not going to get shown up as a pack of fools during the consultation period. But my question is, what happens if we do not adopt the LTP by 30th of June? Is the world going to stop, or what's going to happen?
I think it goes close to it, but Tony?
It pretty much stops in our world, yeah. We have a legal obligation. We would never plan our work, advise council, resource the organisation, make all the plans to not commit to and adhere to our legal responsibilities. So we're doing everything we can to ensure that it is adopted by the 30th of June.
Councillor Brown?
Yes, still the comment if I can do it. Can I? Just to reply to Councillor Mackay, I've been here for 40 years and I filled out all the forms to get here, and I was certainly checked if I could speak the basic language of the country, what is English and Maori. So I had to learn to live here. So I still got a second language, what I speak quite well, but that's not my main one in this country.
Okay, I think we've finished question time. We're going to, because we're waiting on some information to come back, we're going to park this document until that comes back, and we'll pick it up again as soon as the information comes in. So we'll move over to item number 6. Or is it? You haven't got it? No. Item number 6 is draft infrastructure and financial strategies. Page 10, item number 6. And that's the 30-year infrastructure strategy. Tony.
Thank you, through the chair. So, yes, you have the version on Stella. As you probably are sick of us telling you, we've been in a pretty arduous process with audit, and we had final changes come through again later last night. So what you've got in front of you are the printed copies, which are the up-to-date versions of the infrastructure and financial strategies. So just a reminder, the infrastructure strategy has a 30-year focus. What audit wanted us to strengthen in that, and which aligns with the consultation document, was our knowledge around the condition of our assets. They call these condition assessments. They wanted us to spell out really clearly to the community that there are risks around our current approach condition assessments, which could mean disrupted levels of service or unplanned renewal costs. The flip side of that is Council takes a pretty prudent approach to that and is monitoring and keeping an eye on its assets quite closely.
Okay. So we might go through the document, and I have one question on page 23 under 3 Waters Reform, and it says, while we're anticipating that there will be change to ownership, I'd like the will change to may be changed to ownership. Will is saying there will happen, but we will make the decision whether it will or it won't, but it may change.
Yep, we can make that change.
Page 23. I'm working on the old document too, so.
That's fine. We'll be able to track that down and make that
right.
change.
Carolyn.
We've just got the new document now. Can you tell us where the changes are, Tony, just so we can save ourselves asking the questions that might no longer be relevant?
Yeah, sure thing. So if you go to, it's actually really early on in the piece. It's up on page, page 3. And it's pretty much under the title, How Well Do We Know Our Assets? It's those next 5 or 6 paragraphs that got beefed up. Yes, expanded on. Yep, audit wanted us to be really upfront with what we do and don't know about asset assessments.
I have another question on page 27 of the council agenda, and it's under our future drinking water. And it talks about, in the last paragraph, more changes in the pipeline. There are proposals for a change to service delivery arrangements on the table, which include the transfer of service delivery from local councils to regional council controlled organisations. That's the first I've heard of that. Yep.
Through the chair, we'll make sure that lines up with our phrasing that we're using in
or removed of it.
Yes.
Because we're not, I don't think we're transferring to regional council controlled organisations.
No,
Right.
no. So we will get the wording right, but we can dispel that notion about regional council control right now. That is not true.
Yep. Liz.
Just with this new document, you might want to check the page numbers because it goes to page 10 and then it goes back to page 2.
Thank you, we will.
Yeah, sorry. And I think that's why I'm confused. I can't figure it.
So.
John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 6 of the table document, or page 20 of Stella, we've got long-term pressure to reduce or maintain volumes in water take resource consents. Is that for the whole county, or is it just for our water schemes, or what does that relate to, and where is this pressure coming from?
Thank you, through the chair. As I understand it, that's pressure that could come on our respective water scheme consents. So for the Ashburton Drinking Water Supply or Methven or Rakaya, and that would be coming through the Regional Council. Bearing in mind this is a 30-year view, and so within this 30 years, if and when those consents come up, it would be unwise not to expect some pressure coming.
If anything, we would be increasing, because our population would be increasing, we'd be needing more. But John?
Well, my comment is, if we don't have water, how are we going to stay alive?
Yes, but I think the comment around the likely long-term pressure is valid. That there is pressure to reduce abstraction, there is pressure to return the health of the rivers, there is pressure on all those things. So responding to that as a statement is not wrong over that sort of horizon. And remembering that one of the new pieces of legislation in relation to water reform includes the concept of Te Mana o Te Wai, which has put the water first. So there's no, I don't think there's much doubt that statement around long-term pressure is true.
Roger?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 15 and 16 of the tabled document, 5.1.5, regarding reticulation extensions. I've looked at the preferred option, and one of the other options was do not plan for or install reticulation, but allow developers and private landowners to install that reticulation and be vested in the council. It says this option is the cheapest for the council. What I'd like to know is how much cheaper is it, and what risks are we likely to run if we do that? Because why should the ratepayer pay extra money for proactive reticulation if we do not run too many risks and it costs the ratepayer less money?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd have to go and have a chat to the asset guys in terms of what the actual dollar costs are. Yeah.
Steve, good, Roger? Yep. I have a question on 32 of Stella, 5.1.2 water charging. So, and the preferred option is universally charged for water on a volumetric basis. I would put that as the last option and not be a preferred option, because it's not what we are preferring, or this council's not preferring. Another council may, but this council's not. And I'd also put another option in as well, which would be an incentive for less water used per household. A carrot instead of a stick is an option going forward.
Thank you, through the chair. So I'll have a chat to Chris and see if we can put an education-based option in there as well.
Yeah, it's just an option, it's not a must.
Yes, no, that's the thing, and it's a 30-year view. Cool.
But universally charged for water, yeah, it is an option, but it's not our preferred option, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I'll change the language to make sure it's really explicit.
Okay, thanks. Carol?
I've got two remarks. One on section 4, page 2 it's got, but it's not page 2. Our major projects. The bottom one is Ashburton Timwell Transportation Connectivity 24 to 26. Is that the bridge?
Yes,
proposal?
it is. That's the bridge, the second Ashburton Urban Bridge.
So that's not the actual being built, that's a proposal to go forward, or is that the start of it? Because I thought it was a year earlier, we discussed it was a year later than that, I think. Page 4, this little graph here.
What's the heading? What's the heading of it?
Our major projects. It's on page 2, but it's actually not. Yes. Yeah.
Tables, yeah.
I don't think that timeline married up with, I think that was rather than the building, that was the, anyway, it's.
Oh, the timeline, yeah.
Good, Caroline, you're fine?
Yeah, I've got
I'll
one more
double
question.
check that.
Okay.
Thanks, Tony, yeah. But that is the bridge. That was my main question, the timing, you could sort that out. The next question is affordability. We go back now to page 8. We will face increased pressure to keep rates affordable. This means future rate rises and borrowing limits have caps to work within. And then we go over, which is a sort of a segue from the Mayor's comment, we're going over to major project work. However, where there is an immediate need or a regulatory deadline, this may not be possible. I don't think we want to signal that we have a default position of putting the rates up. That is what this is signalling.
Okay, can we have to, what page are you on? What number?
Page 8, the bottom of page 8.
That means nothing to us up here. If you've got something up the top of your
Well,
table.
if you go to page, oh, why, have you
I
not
haven't
got
got
the hard
page
copy?
8.
Why haven't you got page 8?
Referring to this document.
I'm working on the council agenda.
Oh, beg your pardon.
Right.
I'm working to the new document we were handed out 10 minutes ago, page 8.
Right. Thank you.
Affordability. Yeah, I'm not working on Stella.
Water charging, right.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I just wonder if we can wordsmith that around a bit to show that there would be considerable pressure in order to put the rates up or pay for extra charges.
Now, we found the page, we're not finding where you're reading it.
There's likely on the left, halfway down, affordability, fourth paragraph down, the longest paragraph.
Just goes 2
Yeah.
seconds.
What number is on the top of your page?
22 on Stella.
I'm on our 30-year infrastructure strategy, 21 to 51.
Page 22 of Stella, I think.
Right. Halfway down.
Thank you, Councillor.
Starting.
And then go directly opposite that on impact on infrastructure and our response. It almost looks like, however, we might, if there's, and I just wonder if it's an out, and we need to just put a circle around that and just say that would be absolutely.
I think, oh, you can't. You can't go back on. I think what you're trying to say is if the council defaults on the payment of interest or principal, then a rate is set to collect that money. It's a default clause, I think, if that's what you're meaning. That whoever takes over gets to rate for the monies that are owed, so they never miss out. It's the security.
Well, we basically, yeah, okay, well, you can read. Do you understand what I'm saying, Kate? No?
Sorry, through the chair, I'm not very clear on what the concern is and what you'd like to see changed. Okay.
We've got a few lined up, Stuart.
Page 33 of the new document.
Thank you.
Rural stormwater. Totally disagree. It says former stockwater races will become drainage assets. Blah, 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 blah. And then it says in the bottom right, it's likely to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to maintain them and so on. I thought we'd decided if we close stockwater races, we let the water follow its natural course. Why should we artificially send rural stormwater into the next door neighbours? That's not what we're there for. Stockwater races may have did it in the past, but they shouldn't be doing that. It should be following natural water contours. So I totally reject that whole part there about rural stormwater having to be run through stockwater races.
I also agree with you. I highlighted it myself, because in the town, do you take your stormwater from your house and give it to your neighbour? No. So why would you do it in the rural area? I totally disagree with that whole part of it, the preferred option. And the other options becomes the preferred option, because there'll only be one. Leave it as the responsibility of the landowners. For rural, I'm talking about. Stuart, you have another one?
No.
John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot of the questions that Councillor Cameron just asked before do actually come up in the review of the Treasury Management Policy, and I think they will answer most of what she was questioning.
I have a question on page 49 of Stella. 6.1.2 Ocean Farm wastewater disposal. And I just think the costings don't seem right. Replace current irrigation system with subsurface irrigation, $400,000. It doesn't sound right to me. Because the other options, you could replace it with a pivot or a lateral, which will be a lot likely to be more expensive. I doubt if that is true. Underground. So I think that agree with the concept, but the dollars doesn't seem right.
Sorry, that's what the assets team have provided, and that's what they'll have prepared their budgets upon. So they'll have some robustness to that, but I'll count check if we need to.
Probably not highly critical, but the numbers don't seem right. The concept is fine. Yeah, Angus.
Mr Mayor, I'm just going back to Councillor Wilson, page 32 of the handout today, and your comments re stormwater. They were two very good speeches, I thought. What was the result? Is it in or out?
Tony?
Sorry, through the chair. I'll park your question just for now. I just want to point out this is a draft infrastructure strategy that sits as the basis of our consultation document. It's not locking you into it by adopting it today, but it sits as this is the underpinning information from which we've used to prepare this consultation document to have the conversation with the community. In terms of the rural stockwater question, the rural stormwater question, I'm not able to answer that with any great clarity, but that will be reflecting where the current decisions have been made at this point.
Richard?
Can I just add that the council has a process for the closure of stockwater races, and that says that on a closure by closure basis, you will take into account a number of factors, including the impacts on drainage values. So while yes, you have had a discussion at workshop where you indicated your preference was for water to follow its natural course, your process is to take those matters into account on a decision by decision basis. In addition, your surface water strategy indicates your intention to assess the impact of water races in terms of drainage across the district, which is a project coming forward in future budgets.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, my next question is, if we had policy that left some doubt re stormwater in an urban area, would we not run into lots of interesting discussions with land developers on whether they needed a bund or not, using up a number of sections, saleable sections? In other words, they say, why do I need a bund? Can't I just allow water to follow its natural course? The end result is they would have maybe 1, 2, 3 or 5 sections that they could then sell instead of having a bund to hold the stormwater. So to me, that paragraph there at present is not certain, leaves a whole lot of doubt, whereas in an urban area there is no doubt whatsoever. The rules are the rules.
Yeah. Path forward.
So can it?
It's what,
would you like an amendment when you get a motion? I'll do that. Thank you.
When we get there. Tony, can we take this out if we want to now, or does it have to go out for consultation?
So this is the underpinning document from which we've prepared everything to go out for consultation. Taking it out, I'll have to go and double check if there's any budget implications, because then that will ripple through everything.
But it can be consulted on and then taken out.
Absolutely, yes.
Yep. And a staff submission could do that?
Yes, it could.
Yep. Thank you. Any further? Oh, Lynette.
I just had a question on page 49. On the Ocean Farm, the last paragraph, replacement current irrigation scheme with soluble irrigation. Just around the option which enables higher yield grass yields due to more complete coverage up to doubling the area. It's the whole paragraph I don't really like. May and lock higher prices for the grass due to more buyers in the market for the product. We don't really know there's more buyers there. That whole paragraph, I think it could be better worded somehow. Or could it be better worded?
Through the chair, it certainly could be better worded before we adopt the LTP in June. We can work on that and refine as we need to.
Okay, we'll make note of that. Thank you, Lynette. Any further, councillors? John?
I think we could be here all day discussing the clause by clause part of this. So as it is just a draft infrastructure strategy and draft financial strategy, I would move the recommendation.
With a seconder?
And I second it.
Moved John, seconded Lane.
What page are we actually looking at?
10.
Page 10 of your agenda on Stella.
And John, would you like to talk to your motion and around how we can, through the submission process, sort this?
Well, I'm open to be educated on how this will be done, because I know we've got the draft infrastructure and financial strategies. We've also got treasury management policy, which all underpin the LTP. So how do we put all this together to go out to the constituents out there?
Thank you, through the chair. So our key document is the consultation document. That's the one we're having the conversation with the community with. On our website, we'll have sitting the draft infrastructure strategy, the draft financial strategy, the draft the treasury management policy, associated policies like revenue and finance policy, and we'll also have the activity management plans, which you'll recall that we workshopped over the last 6 to 8 months, where you drilled into all the details. So they'll be sitting there up as drafts as well. So people are most welcome to go and drill into the detail sitting in and around stockwater, for example, or transportation. Give us their feedback. So the feedback form on the consultation document will take feedback on any of the work that we do, and we'll bring that back to council as a part of the deliberation process. You'll make the final decision and we'll make the according amendments.
Any further debate? Councillor Mackay?
A process question, if I may, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
Understanding orders, how does a councillor arrange for council to say yes or no to a staff submission?
Tony?
Thank you, through the chair. So in the past, when we've done a staff submission, it actually comes in as like you would just get another submission from a member of the community. And when it comes to the deliberations around each respective area, you'll see the community feedback, and you also see sitting separately, this is what the staff feedback is, and this is what the suggested amendment might be, and then their decision will be yours accordingly.
Angus?
Absolutely brilliant answer, Mr Mayor. My question was, how does a councillor, standing orders, arrange for other councillors to say yes and or no to a staff councillor's submission to staff to go in the staff submissions?
If you've got the question, he's wondering how you get our thoughts and put them on paper as a staff submission.
What's the standing order process, is the question.
Does that sound like a councillor submission?
Well,
the
trouble is, if a councillor puts a submission in, then I presume they rule themselves out of discussing that particular topic.
Correct.
So my question was, how does a councillor, understanding orders, get the councillors to agree or disagree to something going in a staff submission?
Well, you don't.
You don't?
No. Because you're the decision maker. You're going to receive submissions. I think there's two aspects to a staff submission. There's the kind of the technical, which is to reflect this very conversation like this, to make sure that matters of correction or or concern or clarification put before the council. And then there may be staff submissions as members of our community who have a particular view about something, and we don't think we should rule those out. But councillors can't, I guess under another name, put their views forward and then have the right to debate and make the decision.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, if I can make comment, I will be voting against the very good 30-year infrastructure strategy. It basically is very good, because I wish somehow to support Councillor Wilson and you on the matters that you raised about stormwater. I've just asked a question about how I do it understanding orders. The answer was not clear. I already knew the answer would not be clear because once a councillor puts a submission forward on a particular subject, they cannot have any say at submission time. So I will be voting against it on that very technical part, and that's why I'm doing it, to support you and Councillor Wilson.
Thank you for that. Any further debate? Before I put the motion, right of reply, Councillor Falloon.
I hear and understand what Councillor Mackay says, but at the end of the day, it still comes back to the council, after taking into account all the submissions, of what they are going to include and what they are not going to include. I think council officers have done a heck of a lot of work in putting this all together, tying it in with every other document we've had for the last 4 months, and to be making late changes at this stage when it is only a draft, to me would be a waste of time.
I'm going to put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? No. Carried. Recorded. The item number 7, the review of the Treasury Management Policy, page 76. Thank you, Emily and Richard. That's Rachel too, is it? No. It's Richard. Richard, anything to add to your report or questions?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Questions, councillors? Clarification? Just have one question myself. It's on the page 78 under the requirement, what is the cost? And there's a $33,000 there. So if that would be spent if we go out for consultation, is that correct?
No, that is the cost, the annual cost of operating this policy. Effectively, it's largely budget for the advice we receive and the services we receive from Bancorp over a 12-month period.
Okay, thank you. Liz, we were on.
Thank you. Now, I will ask this question. So on page 78, number 10 and number 11, can you just explain if that's correct, especially number 11 where it says, for this reason, officers do not support option 2, officers recommend option 1.
Yep. My explanation, Councillor, is that my 1s and 2s are at 6s and 7s, and I should have had, but officers are supporting option 2, not option 1.
Just to clarify, the recommendation is to adopt the policy without consultation instead of with.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, no public consultation is the, yeah. A question on page 92. Fixed rate hedging percentages, and we only go up to 4 to 8 years. Why do we not have an option of going out to 20 years?
It's a long way to go out, and normally we can achieve those hedging options by actually increasing the amount of extreme long-term debt we take. So the LGFA is issuing very long debt at the moment, and we can do that hedging option through that rather than using a hedging instrument.
My reckoning was if we can loan fund for a project for 25 to 50 to 40 years, why can we not fix the interest rate on that same debt out to the same time of the life of the asset?
There is, when you hedge, banks will probably not hedge that far, but when you actually hedge, you're paying a cost which has got an interest component in the hedging. So even though you're fixing like the face of that debt, you're actually paying a hedging cost, and that can be quite big if rates move. I hear what you say with long-term projects, and as I said, one of the issues we can look at is take up some of the LGFA's long-term debt, which would lock us in without hedging.
Yeah, this policy would prevent us from having a fixed term, long-term rate of up to 20 plus years. But
No.
with your swaps and, what do you call them? The swaps and collars and interest rate options and interest rate collar type, forward start, interest rate swaps, forward rate agreements, allow you to do that. But what about fixed interest rate like in the old days?
The policy is covering your hedging facility. If you take out a 15-year long-term debt, that's still allowed under this policy.
It's,
There'd be no hedging with it, it would just be a fixed.
so the long-term debt limits don't have a year on them?
No, that's you have to be within that range at all times.
The range of,
In 0 to 2 years, you can have 100% fixed, and in 4 to 8 years, 60%, because you don't want to end up. There's a different view of this, but you don't really want to fix your very long term at the start, but you can, and if you want to change those maximum fix, we can.
yeah, but at the moment you can't because the policy says you can't. I'm not saying we should. It just gives the option of doing it if you wanted fixed or long-term debts up to 25 years, and it could be from 0 to 100%, which allows you to do it, or which just allows you to do it if you wanted to. It's not an option at the moment.
Oh, if you want to change the option, you can.
Okay. Can we add that in, if councillors agree?
One of the cautions through Mr. Mayor would be that if you say that something of that length of time has a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 100%, it means you can do anything under the policy.
That's right. Yep.
And now the policy is of little guidance to officers because anything is now possible, and that leaves the potential for decisions to be made which you might later regret because you make a decision at the moment in time, fits the policy allowed everything, and you might not get the best outcome because you weren't actually receiving any guidance at all, and now it's down to the decision of the individual at any moment in time, which is not kind of what policy tries to give meaningful guidance. So if the will of council was to open it up to that degree, then there would be increased risk with that, because now the policy allows a very flexible approach, and that isn't. There's not a lot of guidance in that. So there's just a word of caution as you contemplate doing it.
Yeah, I'll ask other councillors what their opinions are or not. John.
Oh, before I ask, Lynette's got a question.
Oh. Lynette, come on.
I was just asking, does the group manager have the authority to make decisions on his own, or does he consult with the others to make the decisions? I was just noting that really from page 87.
Cool.
Through Mr. Mayor, I make decisions based on advice that I get. So I don't make any hedging decisions without getting the professional advice that we pay for.
Have you the answer?
We couldn't really pick that up.
Or could you repeat? Come closer to your machine.
I don't make any hedging decisions without consultation with our advisor. So I always take their advice on what is appropriate hedging to undertake, if any.
Is that what you just said, do you take advice from someone else? Is that in the policy?
I think in somewhere it is that, I'd have to go and confirm that.
You may not do that, but someone in your role in the future may do it on their own. But with this policy looking long term.
We'd have to check to see whether that's in the policy.
So I think what Lynette is probably asking is that there's two people check it, so one person doesn't get to make the decision. Two people have looked at it and decided that's what will happen.
I think though
Which is
that
probably a good backstop.
it is, but through me, that's why these ranges are narrower than what you're suggesting, is to stop complete freedom of going to 100%. So the professional advice we got was they're the ranges that are appropriate. If you increase them, then it probably is more important that the group manager business support can't make the decision on their own.
Yeah. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number of questions. First of all, starting off on page 44, where we've got a nice graph on what our operating costs are or going to be over the next odd number of years. Do the operating costs include depreciation?
You may just run that question past us again.
That's in the policy we've just adopted, yeah, back in the previous item.
Under operating costs, 5.2.3 is page 44.
Yep, that's one.
And your question, we've
Does the operating costs include depreciation?
just thinking we've passed that.
Yes,
We've
through the
passed
chair, yes
that.
it does. So that's sitting back in the infrastructure strategy, but the answer to your question is yes.
Which we
Oh,
haven't
sorry.
passed yet.
Oh, hang on.
Yes, we have. Yeah. John, you moved it. See, we're on the Treasury Management Policy. Which I don't, if there's no further questions, I'm looking for a move and a seconder. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Brown. Carolyn, not speak to it.
No.
Councillor Brown.
I think it's fine the way it is. Thank you.
So there's no consultation on this document. It is adopted today, and then that is it for X number of years. How long is this policy for? 3 years. Every LTP we've reviewed. For there being no further debate, or none, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Item number 8. Page 112. Angus.
Questions?
Yes, questions. Emily, welcome.
My comment will be that I think it's very well done this, but I've just got one query, and it's on page 118 of Stella at the bottom of the page, release of images. And I come to, I've got no problem with more junior managers assessing, but it's when it comes to staff members that will have delegated authority to release the images is my problem. The environmental monitoring manager, group manager, strategy and compliance, group manager, community services, well and good, maybe community services group manager should be added into the, right at the bottom of the page, approval for the release of CCTV images is at the discretion of the environmental monitoring officer, manager of group manager, strategy and compliance, and maybe community services. Where I have the problem is that on my understanding, even when I read the appendix, the library manager, the senior librarian, the sports facility manager and the recreational manager can actually release it to the public. That's my understanding of it. And I don't think that should be the case. I have no problem with those people assessing and giving advice to the appropriate group manager. I think that's more than appropriate. But it's just the way I read that. Maybe I've read it back to front. Please help me out.
Yeah, June?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They can't release them to members of the public. They can only release them to the police.
That's the third tier managers, but the leadership team could release it to the public.
No, not the leadership team, just my role and Rick Catchpole within this building. Why we added the library manager and the EA manager to it was at the request of the police, just to make things a bit quicker and less convoluted. But we will only release images to the police, never to members of the public.
Okay.
And the police go through a process to request the images, and we need to do that so that we don't violate the Privacy Act.
Oh, thank you. Happy Angus, your light's gone off, but you may have to wait to come back on. John, Angus, now come on. Carolyn, you go off. Angus.
Oh, I think Group Manager of Environmental Services is totally agreeing with me, but it says release of images, council will determine the release of images in accordance with the Privacy Act and request for images CTV. Gives the indication they can release it, whereas I think I totally agree with Jane and what she said, and I think that's how it should read.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think we're all agreeing with each other. That process is for requests from the police. So I think it actually implies that there's a different sort of process of release to the public. It isn't, that process is requests for information from the police. So we're all agreeing with each other. Yeah, I understand the point. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Cameron.
When we had a discussion in council a wee while ago now, we talked about location of cameras and we talked about level of vandalism in the town, and there was some discussion regarding cameras to mitigate level of vandalism. I note in this, does this preclude where we've got other locations? You've got Ashburton Domain and the Timwell Domain. Is that to reduce the vandalism, or what is that? What are they there for?
Jane?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is primarily vandalism, but also public safety in case there's ever fights and things like that.
Okay.
Question time, councillors. Councillor Floon. Carolyn, go off.
Oh, I've got one more question.
One more question,
Yeah.
sorry.
When we discuss location of future cameras, and the cameras aren't, I just can't see it in the policy, but I just read it. Cameras aren't the only reason, way to mitigate dangerous behaviour or antisocial behaviour. There's other things such as communal spaces and a nice environment, etc., etc. Does this policy preclude a townsman?
It does, because this is for closed circuit television cameras.
Yeah. So there must be a link to safety. There must be another policy then that links to CBD safety or safety in the town.
I think the police Jane.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, within our own internal guidelines for staff, we also have a form that staff need to fill out if they want additional or new CCTV, and that form requires them to state what the problem is and what other mechanisms might be available for addressing that problem other than CCTV. And the reason for that is that the experts have taught us in the past that people automatically go to that as being the solution for everything, and quite often it is not the best solution. So we do go through a process internally to try and determine that that is the right tool to use.
John.
Certainly I think it's a very good policy, but one part on page 119 leaves me a little bit perplexed. Approval for the addition of a CCTV cameras is at the discretion of the Information Services Manager. Why the Information Services Manager?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the reason it is the Information Services Manager is because he was as good as anybody. At the time when we first developed this policy years ago, bearing in mind this is a review, it was pretty much 6 of one, half a dozen of another as to who might be the appropriate person. There are some implications at times in terms of operating systems, and he was determined to be the person, and that's how that came about. It doesn't really matter who it is, which manager, so long as there is somebody with that task.
Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Page 123 on Stella, with the timetable, how it works. I thought we were the council. We're not mentioned. We can't request a camera, we can't access a camera, we can't do anything unless we're a member of the public. Do we have no rights at all, even though it's called a council CCTV?
Sorry, Councillor Wilson, I don't quite understand the question. What would you want to do as a councillor? You would want to do?
Staff can request they want a CCTV built up camera there or there.
Yep.
We're the council.
Mm-hmm.
Can we not say we want a camera somewhere?
Yes, you can certainly ask. We would
Doesn't
go
say
through.
so.
We would go through the same process.
Request from council staff, council contractor or unit, but there's nowhere it says anything about council laws can have any say.
Well, if we could add that if you like, because at
If
the
we're
moment,
entitled to, it should be in there.
if you asked, we would go through exactly the same process.
We will add those words, Councillor, to that box on the right-hand side.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
I just have a question following on from John's question with regards to the location of a new closed circuit TV. That is at the discretion of the information manager or at anybody's discretion. It worries me that it's the discretion of one individual who may or may not be familiar with where a closed circuit TV needs to go. And I would suggest a group or a committee or 2 or 3 or 4 people would be more usefully placed to make that decision than an individual.
Through you, Mr Mayor, in reality, all those decisions are made after consultation with our contractor, because he's the expert on what works, what doesn't, what sort of camera it should be and where it should be. So it tends to be more collective than one person.
So if I can make a suggestion that that policy is amended to reflect that, that would be useful, please.
Yep, got it. Will do.
Someone like to move and second the policy with those 2 amendments, I think it was? Councillor McMillan?
I'm happy to move it.
With those amendments,
With
I'll
those
second.
Open for debate. With there being no debate, I'll put the motion on in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Number 9, elderly persons housing policy. Do you think this will take long? The 24 hours? They're not due until 2:15 on time. Bring them in.
I think so.
Well, they'll take, we've set them up. We're all right. Yeah. Council, we just have Wakakatahi coming in, also known as NZTA. To give us an update on their business in the district. So, councillors, I hope you'll have your questions ready for them. They have a presentation and then question time. With the A-team. Welcome, Wakakatahi, NZTA. Michael, welcome. And you have Fiona, and you have there. You have 2 others who I don't know who you are, so you may like to do some introductions. This is the Ashburton Council. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Yes, my name's Mike Blyleven. I'm the team lead for the New Zealand Upgrade program within Wakakatahi, which is a program being undertaken on behalf of the Minister of Transport. But with me on the front table is Grace Ryan, who's part of our consultants design team, who's been helping us to develop the option that is going out to consultation at the moment. And behind us is Fiona, McLeod, who's our comms rep from Wakakotahi, and Carly Bristead from GHD, the consultants, and they will be leading and facilitating the public consultation round.
Welcome, thank you.
Thank you. So thank you all for this opportunity to give you an update on the New Zealand Upgrade Programme. Let's go one forward. This, as I mentioned, is part of the government's infrastructure program. It was developed prior to COVID, and it's got an intent. There's a large investment here, and while we're looking to deliver safety, accessibility and travel choice improvements around the country, there is a package here in Canterbury with 2 activities, one at Walnut Ave and one in the Tynwald corridor that I want to focus on today. But the intent is that this will give a pipeline of work to the construction sector going forward. Walnut Ave, just quickly, if you're not aware, the current roundabouts we're looking to replace with traffic signals. And one of the key advantages of this is with the high school and the intermediate school, we'll be able to provide safe and reliable crossings for those children that are crossing at those locations. That project is just completing design. The one aspect that we're still finalising is the railway signal designs, and that will be ongoing for a little bit longer. That's quite a specialist task, but we have identified that work can commence, and we will be going out to market to get a construction contractor on board by the middle of the year for that project. Next one. Tynwald, as you will all be very aware, we have residents and that community straddling the state highway, so people from the west and the east needing to get across and onto the state highway. So we've been grappling with the problems and the issues in that area, and would particularly like to acknowledge the inputs from Mayor Brown, Councillor Brahm, Rawlinson and Wilson, who participated in a workshop prior to Christmas to work through those issues. And what we've identified in the solution going forward is something that's looking to improve the safety to cross and access the state highway by foot, cycle and vehicle. By providing signals at the intersection with Lagmore and Agnes, that's where we can provide and improve access for all travel options by those particular modes. But also particularly acknowledging the delays and difficulties that people have getting, particularly turning right from Lagmore on the west side and turning right from Graham Street, those people that are exiting Lakehood, and just acknowledging the difficulties that they have. So historically a lot of the discussion was around Graham Street. So just what we're proposing with the option is if you are needing to make a right turn onto the state highway from that vicinity, we are encouraging vehicles to turn right onto McMurdo and then onto Agnes, and using what will be a right turn signalised intersection to enable that movement to happen more reliably. At the same time, you'll be able to come from the west side of Tynwald and make that corresponding right turn from the Lagmore area, acknowledging that there's a number of trucks and larger vehicles that are making those movements as well. Back at Graham Street, we're proposing to put in a right turn bay for traffic coming from the south. So recognising that traffic is still coming from the south to Lakehood, and similarly the left turners, and so looking to improve the manoeuvrability at that intersection. We are not proposing to ban the right turns out of Graham Street. So if you still want to try to make that right turn from Graham Street, you can. There will be some improved gaps with the signals metering the traffic flow coming southbound that may make that a little bit more reliable for you or easier for you. But we would really encourage those who, if you want a guaranteed right turn, then the traffic signals are the provision for that. The other key movement that we can facilitate with the traffic signals is obviously the walking and cyclists that are coming from the west side to the shops and the school on the east side. And along with that, we'll be removing the current zebra crossing on the state highway. And that safe walking, cycling route will be through the traffic signals. And talking with your officers, we're looking to promote the safe route to school to continue further along Agnes Street and then Thompson Street to the crossing point that is on Graham Street. And that way we're facilitating access to the whole of the Tynwald community. The other key change that we're proposing, we've been grappling with how we facilitate cycle movement along the state highway, or particularly in that, I'll call it north-south movement. From the south, and talking with, again, your officers and the feedback that's been coming through the walking and cycling strategy, the promotion of Malcolm Street for cycling has been identified because it accesses the residents on that western side. That's where the cyclists actually want to be. So we're promoting that as the key cycle route that links through to the rail viaduct underpass and links through to the bridge. So if you're coming north, we would have a dedicated pull-off for the cyclists, go across a safe crossing of the railway line, and then traverse along Malcolm Street to destinations further north. Also, at the viaduct location of Malcolm Street up near Carter's Terrace, because of that confusion with two-way traffic on that one-lane section, talking again with your officers, we're looking to promote that as an outbound direction at the viaduct and turning left onto the highway to go to Ashburton. What that will mean is that right turns into that viaduct location will be encouraged down the road at the Malcolm crossing, and will, by removing the cycle lane on the railway side of the state highway, the northbound cycle lane, we'll be able to gain a little bit of width in the median and provide a dedicated right turn bay into that Malcolm crossing location. So there's a number, the reason this is called the Tynwald corridor improvements is while the anchor improvement is at the Lemoore Agnes signals, it is looking from a system-wide perspective to provide for those different modes and improve safety overall. So that's the background of the project option, and I'm happy to take questions at this point and then maybe close with some next steps in terms of timeframes and what's happening from there.
Thanks, Michael, that looks good. And one question for myself, when we had the round the table meeting before Christmas, there was discussion about using the green strip for cyclists heading north instead of Malcolm. So obviously that didn't make the cut at this stage.
That's right, Mayor. We were talking about that, and from the local feedback at that, there was a lot of, there were queries around who would actually be using that strip along that grass verge area. It looks very nice for a path, but really we thought if people had come from Ashburton they really want to get into those residential areas, and hence promoting Malcolm Street was adopted as the recommended option going forward.
Okay, just to comment, I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but the underpass where you go through, it's a single lane. I don't know whether it's,
Yes.
obviously a bicycle is not very wide, but a car is. So you've obviously thought about how they merge together.
Yes, but more so that currently that single lane has traffic in both directions that the cyclists need to negotiate, and the proposal is that it would be only in the outbound towards the state highway direction.
Right.
And the finer details on how that looks will be worked through in the more detailed plans.
And you've got an open day coming up as well for people to put their thoughts together. as well.
That's right. So on our website is you'll find the Tynwald Corridor Improvements Project, and that consultation period has opened, and we have an open day at the school next Tuesday from 3 o'clock until 6:30. And that's where people can drop in and ask the questions, and our team of consultants will be there to answer those queries. But the online form, it's what we refer to as Social Pinpoint, and it's one of those sites where the plan is on here and people can click on particular locations and raise their comments, be those concerns or likes. They can tap into other people's comments and provide feedback about whether they support or don't support. And we've found that as a very useful medium to distill information from the community, because at the end of the day, this project is about safe community access, and it is your constituents that we are providing for here. The signals on the highway will cause traffic on the highway to stop, which we're very conscious of, but the signal optimisation that we've been working through is looking to minimise that impact, but that is a price that we deem safe community access as being worth the investment in this situation.
Great, thank you. And I've got a few questions lined up. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Malcolm. I've got a few questions with your indulgence. Thank you for your presentation, and I'm delighted to hear that safety is a priority for NZTA. Some issues that you've mentioned will be very helpful, but I do not believe it goes far enough. I don't understand the limits on what is spent in the improvements of the Tynwald corridor, but obviously further north up where Carter's Terrace is, there's a lot of Tynwald between Agnes Street and Carter's Terrace. So there's a lot of backtracking if they're all going to go to those lights. And a lot of school children, and I appreciate this, and this is why I'm bringing it up, the safety motivation, need to cross across the road from either side, and they cannot cross that unless they go down to Agnes Street and use the cycleways and the lights. We had discussed around this council an idea of putting a little island in the middle or some traffic lights to cross up further up, perhaps near between Carter's and Wilkins Street or up near Carter's Terrace. There's a huge gap there, and there's a lot of, it's a really busy road, and you guys will know those figures better than I do, but I think I read somewhere last week that the number of cars crossing over the bridge is between 22 and 24,000 a day, and we've got 2 lanes, so they're constantly crossing. And that brings us to another issue, which I think is the west side of the bridge, I understand, is NZTA's department, if you like. Those pedestrian crossings, cycling crossings and motorised scooter crossings are not wide enough by a long shot, and they need urgent improvement, because that is possibly an accident waiting to happen, and people cannot cross the bridge safely at the moment. And I think that does need some consideration. I could go on about this for a long time. But my next question is, we're starting the Walnut Avenue upgrade, which is wonderful, in the middle of the year. When is the anticipated finish time for that?
That will be completed by the end of next year. So
it's 18 months.
Yes, there'll be enabling works through the winter. We'll be finalising the rail signal designs, and then we'll be working through the physical works. There's quite a bit with the 2 intersections, and traffic management will mean that we can't do everything at once. And so hence the final surfacing will be lining up for that spring, summer period.
Thank you. We're undergoing significant disruption in the CBD, so we appreciate roadworks and the disruption it causes. 18 months, given with the lights at the bridge, given the disruption in Tynwald already, have you tried to come back over the bridge on a Sunday afternoon? You understand this?
I do understand.
Yeah. That is too long, and can I suggest you expedite the railway consultation process so that it's not a hesitation between the, we're not waiting for that to proceed. We might as well get it all done and then proceeding, because that's a massive disruption for this town that has been disrupted a lot. And with regards, so that's 18 months to get that finished, and that's both sides, that's total roundabout, both sides.
Yes.
And what about the Lagmore Road lights? When are they anticipated to be finished?
So that will be the following season will be the completion
So we're
of that.
talking, can you give me a date, like July 22 or July 23?
It'll be more the summer, September, October, November.
22.
23.
23.
Yep.
And when are they anticipated to start, please?
We'll be starting that in about potentially 6 months' time. We'll be looking to get underway with that.
So that's an additional 18 months disruption at the other end of town.
So some of those time frames we need to allow for requirements around land access and land acquisition. We don't believe at this stage that we've got a lot in this particular project, but we do need to work through the appropriate consenting processes, and we also need to time in with those construction seasons in terms of laying of asphalt and tarmac. And there is some works, we need to, when we rush those at the wrong time of year, if we get a bad weather period coming, we then pay the price. That's when you see new works with potholes, and nobody thanks us for that.
And roading is a big priority for this district, so I understand the roading considerations with regards to weather. And my final question, with your indulgence, Mr. Mayor, is can we ask, please, that they're not done at the same time? Imagine that in our town with 22,000 movements over the bridge, most go down the state highway. If we've got blockages at both ends of the town, that would be dangerous. It happens now. I take your point, Councillor Mackay, and inconsiderate. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Just to follow on from Councillor Cameron's comments there, obviously wants the work done as fast as possible, as we all do. Do you look at a job that size, or any job, looking at working 24/7? And if you do, what extra cost does it add, if any?
There's a lot of social cost that it adds. The locals typically don't like us and thank us for banging and crashing through the middle of the night. But it does also come at a contractor cost. And there are health and safety implications. I mean, those people, well, the cost is that the contractors would need to gear up in terms of finding 2 crews of people to work 24/7. But we're also very conscious of health and safety and making sure that their well-being is maintained. So, again, we can try and rush these things, and we'll be exploring all of those options. But typically we find that it's not always practical to work 24/7. But for short periods, we will do that. For example, in large projects where we have bridge works going in place, then that can be to minimise disruption, and if we've got major traffic impacts. But I think, the whole sequence here, what you've got happening in Ashburton at the moment is your town centre work. And we've been talking with Neil and the team around the timing for the Walnut East Street, for example, and we want the central, the town centre work to be completed. And so, we will be working with your people around that staging and sequencing.
Good. Stuart.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, Michael, and your other 3 offsiders. I'm a big bit sceptical. We had the 2014, I think it was, business plan approved for Graham Street, and it ticked all the green boxes well and truly, and it seemed to have disappeared. And then suddenly, out of the blue, comes Lagmore Road. You talk about 22, 23 or something, it's not guaranteed then, is it really? I mean, is it a pie in the sky? You're going to put the business case forward and it'll go to higher authority, and it doesn't mean that they will approve it. So, I mean, it may still be on the never-nevers.
I would like to reply to that, if I may, Mayor. This project has been selected by the Minister of Transport to improve safe or provide safe community access. It's a priority that this particular government is looking to instill, and the funding for this project is now Crown funded. So unlike a typical project that must go through a business case and submit a request for funding of the next stage, we have funding for this project now. And while we all want to build this project tomorrow, there are the processes that we need to work through to make sure that our solution is the correct one and that it is constructed properly. But this is a project that has money in the bank to progress now, so I can offer somewhat more assurance to you than I can usually when you ask me this sort of question.
Supplementary, as far as the cycle track down Malcolm Street, will that be a district council project or will it be NZTA funded? Is it a special new piece, or is it a piece on the road, or how do you envisage it being developed?
We envisage that as a piece on the road. We would and utilising the wee symbol that you can see there with the cycle and the arrow. Being a low traffic, low speed environment, we will be promoting cyclists to share that road, and we will fund the markings of it, but obviously it is a local road and the ongoing management of that will lie with Ashburton District.
And one more, Mr. Mayor. As a user of the viaduct both ways, I was interested you say that our staff recommend that. Have you ever talked to people on the west side who actually use the thing? Because we use it, not the staff here. I mean, we're just as important as they are. Do you ever talk to people over there that use it, who you are going to inconvenience?
Well, that's the purpose of this consultation round, is to gain that feedback. But when we've looked at this, I mean, there are challenges with getting that directional traffic. The sort of anecdotal information that we have been drawing upon is vehicles that are suddenly turning into that viaduct area with a vehicle coming back out, and that's where we have had incidences where we've had vehicles having to back up on towards the state highway. And it's those sorts of safety anecdotes that we've been that's led us to the recommendation that's on the table. But we'd certainly encourage you to provide feedback as to whether or not it works for yourself and in particular that local community. That's the exact sort of feedback that we're looking to get from this round of consultation.
Councillor Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, you mentioned it before. I was part of this process. I'm really quite pleased to see what you've been doing. I know there's more what can be done, but this is a real good start. A question from a councillor just before, who else used that little viaduct going both ways? I am on a bike. And to be quite honest, I'm quite happy to have a single lane there for cars, because now I have to look two sides and try to get into a small hole with the bike. So I'm more than happy to go to Malcolm Street and one way for the cars. They've got more chances to get on the main highway than I normally do on the bike. Just some questions. When we had the workshop, there was quite a discussion about Agnes Street, and there were a couple of things I can remember. One was the petrol station. We thought we might have to take something out to go to the left if you want to go south, but it might not need it, you weren't sure. And another question was basically done by the hotel on the corner, and I must admit there's quite a bit of trucks standing there around that area, stock trucks and bits and pieces at night time, so it might be a wee bit getting tight on Agnes Street and McMurdo Street, but I'm sure there's ways you can try to fix that. One more thing, with the bike lane on the west side, I And I never thought of it, to be quite honest. And I just went back from a council meeting on the bike, came on the bridge, and I was behind an elderly gentleman on a scooter. And really, he has trouble on that side of the road, because as soon as you get off the bridge, there's a wee bit of a way coming down, and that small wee viaduct. I asked him, "Where are you going?" He said, "Well, to the viaduct and then home." And I thought, "Jeepers, that is really, there has to be a wee bit more than only a bike track there," because he was almost falling off. That was scary. I never thought of it. I don't use that, but seeing this gentleman, and he was going home. He was not just on a tour. He just went for the groceries.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah.
So those paths leading up to the bridge and the condition of the bridge, those are the sorts of feedbacks that you can offer as part of this consultation. Because we are aware that the bridge itself is a constrained space. It's not officially part of this project, but it's something for us to consider if you were to submit on it.
Carolyn, then we'll move on to the next part.
Just a very quick remark. As an aside, that's good that the brick, because those clip-on cycleways that Lane just referred to, and the footpath on the right do need to be part of they do need to be considered, or the whole Tynwald corridor becomes irrelevant, if you can't cross the bridge. So it does need to be incorporated. My question is, the Mayor mentioned earlier, are you exploring all options such as 24/7 and 7 days a week and all full-time working? And you said we'll consider all these options. Once you consider those options, then do we have an opportunity to give feedback, or is it in your court only? Do you consult again with us with the timeline and how it's going to work out?
The responsibility does lie with ourselves, but there would be, we could certainly bring an update back to yourselves.
We would appreciate that, because this has a big impact on our community and on and I know you're doing it for safety, but it also has an impact on the safety. Yes. And we would appreciate some feedback as to your dates, your timelines, how you're going to do it, and what's going to happen, because we don't want to have to guess what the place is going to look like in 3 years' time if we've got 2 18-month jobs. Thank you.
Councillor McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Michael, just out of interest, comment is it looks good. My question is, will this design actually foreclose forever the opportunity of a 4-lane highway leading out of Ashburton South?
No, it won't foreclose. Part of the challenge with 4-laning through the Tynwald corridor leads into then what you would need to do through the entirety of Ashburton, which is why, rather than putting all of those eggs into a widened bridge, which is why you're investigating the second bridge, as an option. And it's about sharing that load in terms of recognising that there is a lot of local movements. And so that's what the second bridge is intended to facilitate. The 4-laning, if you're thinking south of Ashburton, it goes south.
Oh, Carolyn, you just
more so going north.
I was actually thinking of getting ready to go through the town 4-laning, because there seems to be a number of people, don't know how big just yet, that don't like where the second bridge is. And you might find more about that next week. So that's why I was asking the question.
Right. No,
because if you're going to 4-lane, I presume if you're going to 4-lane the centre of Ashburton, and you're going to 4-lane the bridge, you're going to have to 4-lane a bit of Tynwald as well, I presume. So that's why I asked the question.
Yes. And Mr. Mayor, if in terms of the options that we have looked at historically through here, we have never recommended going to 4-laning through the centre of Ashburton. The impacts of that corridor would, far outweigh what you're trying to achieve, within the township. And so, that is why 4-laning within Ashburton is not currently foreseen as part of the forward plan.
Councillor Cameron, one last one.
Yep. Is this on our website? This is a question for our team, really. Is this linked on our website? That would be good then, because not everybody is a friend of your Facebook page or goes to your website, but they may get more people if it's on ours as
That
well.
would be great. Thank you, councillor.
Michael, you had a part B to your presentation?
Part B, no, the next slide was only questions, and part of that was going to be timeframes, which we have now covered.
Right, great. Councillor McMillan.
Not so much a question for Waka Kotahi, but for us. Will our council put a submission in on behalf of the councillors, or is it up to individuals?
If council would like a submission, then we'll respond to that for sure.
Yeah, we would welcome a council submission.
Okay, good. It's probably, Michael, if you're the right person to ask or not, but we had another couple of questions too around second urban bridge in Ashburton. And it's still in the program. We just don't see it in the long-term plan one, but it's still in the program where it has been sitting. So nothing's changed there for the councillors' information. If there's any other questions on general... Oh, Lynette. Lynette, we've got Lynette on Skype. Come in, Lynette, please. Can you hear us, Lynette? Okay, while we're waiting, I do have one other question, and I've had a question. It's from the media, and they're asking about the weigh station at Rakaya. You might know, Michael, I don't know if you do or not, but it has been put on hold. You're looking at another site. Do you have an update on that, or is it not your department?
No, sorry, I do not have an update on that, but what you've explained is what I understand. I mean, the original site, they have taken a restock of their thinking around that, and they are looking at alternative sites, but I can't update you on where that process has got to at the moment.
The question did come from media, so if they want more information, they could contact NZTA direct and get an update. Great. Mm-hmm. Lynette, there you go. No, we still can't hear you. You might have to go to... We'll see if... There we go. See, Lynette, you can hear us? Lynette, can you hear us? No, we're having trouble. Yeah, you just unmute yourself, Lynette or Diane, please. Diane, yeah. No, you're not coming. Perhaps you could type your question in. Could you type it in? No sound there at all. I'm not sure. Just while we're waiting for that message to come and type. Councillors, any other questions of Michael and his team? Angus?
Well, I have a quick comment, if I may, that may help them in the future.
Could do, yeah. If it's
goes back, Michael, and I understand that you're a traffic planner. Okay. But I was quite interested when I went to the day down here about the 4-lane highway and the wires you're going to put down the centre of the road. You actually had your car, and you had your tractor. Now on the tractor you had what looked like it was a small tractor you had, and most tractors are pretty big these days, like have dual wheels and that sort of thing. What really intrigued me was the tractor had a mower hanging on it. Now the mower was out to the left, and normally tractor drivers look to the right, so implements are on the right, which would have put the mower in the same line of traffic as the cars. It's always stuck in the back of my mind. I've got the document at home, but I forgot to bring it today to show you what I'm talking about. But you might like to check with, get your information right sometime.
Yeah.
Just a very small thing. but it was going to use up a metre of road where the cars were.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to help.
Yes, thank you.
I don't like your wire either.
That's Stuart.
Hey, thanks, Mr.
for
Chairman.
another day.
The other thing I thought of, it's been suggested to me that if you came up Graham Street and turned into Grove Street, it's a wider street to turn into, and then you ran all the way up Agnes Street, whether that would be an alternative rather than have a sharp. Because Agnes Street is quite sharp to turn into from McMurdo Street, whereas Grove Street would give you a much wider.
Yeah, we did consider turning down Grove Street and then coming the entire length of Agnes, but we thought that additional traffic that we're asking to detour from Graham would therefore impact a lot more people on a new road corridor that we didn't think would be overly appreciated. Certainly the corner of Graham into McMurdo and McMurdo into Agnes we'll be looking at as part of the design process to see and ensure that we can facilitate that as efficiently as we can. The impacts along McMurdo we think are fairly minimal. There's some commercial on the highway side and only a couple of residences on the other side. So we've weighed that up as we've considered that routing option.
Good. Thanks, Lynette. We haven't got anything coming in on typing, but you won't be missed because there's the drop-in session on the 23rd, which you can go to, as everyone can go into, and talk to the people who are going to designing and looking at building it. So that option is there. So you won't miss your opportunity to discuss it, but we just can't contact with you at the moment. So thanks very much, team. That was really good. Thanks for updating, and you might see many of us and the community hopefully will turn up on the 23rd to discuss it further. Thanks very much.
Yes,
great.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, Liz. Oh,
No,
sorry.
Lynette's just
they might
sent
have
me a
texted.
message.
Text.
She sent me a text. Thinking of the viaduct shutting off to traffic only using for walking and cycling as traffic race up Malcolm Street to viaduct. Does anyone understand that?
I think it means shutting the viaduct for all traffic and only for bicycles, scooters and people to walk. Walking. I think that's what you were mentioning, Lynette. Nodding, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is a decision that we'd need to be completely in sync with council themselves around whether that's what you would prefer. We've just had a slightly contrary view, shared around the table earlier, but we'll weigh up those suggestions as we go forward.
So that would be a council decision because that's a council road. Is that correct?
Yes. You will be inheriting the management of that facility.
Yep.
So that's why we need to come to an agreement, and we'll keep working with Neil and team around what that can look like.
Okay, thanks very much. Good discussion. Great. See you all next time. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Councillors, we've got the cadets here, have we? Oh, yeah. Excellent. Oh, thanks. No. Yes. Councillors, we just now have joining us is the Ashburton Air Cadets and the number 24 Squadron Air Training Corps. And we're here to present them a charter for the district, and which mostly symbolics giving the squadron the right to parade the streets on occasions such as Anzac Day and Armistice Day, to name but a few. So it will give them that right, and I have the charter here signed by myself and the Chief Executive. But if I think Lisa or Luke or both or someone would just like to come forward and take the seat and just tell us a little bit about your organisation and what you do, and just a small presentation, a minute or so, or yeah, come on forward and push the wee button for the light to go on, the right hand one. There we go, you're live.
Hello.
Kia ora.
New Zealand Cadet Force is the oldest youth organisation in New Zealand. Its history can be traced back to 1864 in Dunedin. The NZCF vision of preparing New Zealand's successful leaders of tomorrow, and the mission to develop and enable self-discipline, confident and responsible young New Zealanders. New Zealand Cadet Force is made up of 99 cadet units of 3 corps: Navy Cadets, Army Cadets and Air Cadets. We now celebrate the anniversary of New Zealand Cadet Forces on the 12th of November each year. Air Training Corps was established in 1941 in New Zealand following the model set up in the UK to provide practical training young men into the Air Force. Number 24 Squadron held their first parade on the 20th of October 1942 as the community unit at the Ashburton Technical High School grounds, making us 78 years old. Ashburton also had a high school army unit with an attached Air Training Corps flight for a short period of time.
Thank you. One more presenter? Yeah, great.
1953 saw the unit peak with the enrolment of 125 cadets. 24 Squadron took part in a parade in 1954 for the Queen's Royal Visit. Squadron leader Noel Scott was the longest-serving unit commander of 24 Squadron from 1948 to 1977 and was made a member of the Order of the British Empire in 1956. The Air League Efficiency Trophy was awarded to 24 Squadron in 1958 and 1965 for the most efficient air cadet unit in New Zealand. 1978 marked the acceptance of females into the Air Training Corps. Members of the unit have attended promotional courses and returned having received Endeavour Awards for their efforts.
Ashburton has a history of many of its members going on to join the Royal New Zealand Navy, the New Zealand Army, and the Royal New Zealand Air Force, as well as those that stay locally and join other volunteer organizations in the community and become business owners and community leaders. In March 2014, 24 Squadron was the first in the country to have members of our unit achieve the National Certificate in Cadet Forces. 24 Squadron was also presented the Macpherson Trophy for Endeavour in 2010 for greatest improvement in unit efficiency and performance. In 2020, 24 Squadron was the unit to have reported the most unit standards achieved from training, as well as the highest number of cadet in the country to gain the National Certificate in Cadet Forces Level 2.
We are a community-funded organisation supported by the New Zealand Defence Force. Our commissioned officers and civilian support staff are volunteers drawn from the community. 24 Squadron finished the year 2020 with 28 cadets enrolled, 2 commissioned officers and 6 supplementary staff. 24 Squadron has 2 current serving Cadet Force officers holding Cadet Force Long Service Medals, awarded for 12 years continuous service as an officer, with more than 7 former officers also having been awarded the same. Our training consists of parade nights, lessons, camps, courses and a variety of community activities, which include Anzac Day, Battle of Britain, Armistice, Poppy Day, Toot for Tucker and the New Zealand Remembrance Army Grave Restoration Project.
Our core training subjects consist of aviation, navigation, bushcraft, leadership and teamwork, instructional techniques and communication skills, first aid, physical training and sports, ceremonial drill, firearms, safe handling, radio telephone communication, cadet forces knowledge and general service knowledge. These are taught through a mixture of parade nights and field lessons during camps. 24 Squadron has a 4-year training program with opportunities to develop into leadership roles, including commissioned officers or civilian support staff. 24 Squadron also supports Timaru Cadet units and Christchurch Cadet units, as well as Ashburton Aviation Museum, Ashburton RSA, and the Kitty Hawk Hangar Restoration Trust.
So, well done. That's very good history background on your unit, which is excellent. Sounds like you do some very exciting stuff when you're training, which is also very good, and the community work, which is always commendable. So well done to you all. Yeah. And I have a certificate here. Well done. Well done. Well done. Thank you. Oh, do you want to get a photo? Relive that moment. Yes. So, well done. Oh, well done. We've got some stuff to do, didn't we? You start, but not to. Thank you very much for that. It's a prestigious occasion. So we're going to got one little task to do. It's some long-serving staff and new staff to commemorate, and then we're going to break for a cup of tea. So you're more than welcome to stay for more afternoon tea and have a chat with the councillors, and let's get to know each other a bit better. So Sarah, long-serving staff. So if you think your speeches that you gave were all very, very good, and we're live recording this, so which is on Facebook and YouTube, so you can go home tonight and listen to yourselves, and probably the ones at the back probably won't be seen, but the ones who are on the speaker certainly will. Well, the back to you next will be, but we've heard your speeches, which was great.
Hello, through you, Mr Mayor, I'd like to introduce a number of new staff today and also recognise a number of service milestones. We will be doing this once a month, so every second council meeting, and since this has been delayed with a few COVID interruptions, we have got a slightly larger number than most. So first of all, I'd like to introduce, by way of somebody maybe stepping forward and waving, Penny. Penny Tanui is our systems officer in the building services counter. So Penny works in Michael's team. All the builders will most definitely know her on a first name basis, and is busy booking inspections and organising and helping them get their consent processes and inspections through. I've also got 3 new staff, courtesy of the National Public Library extra funding. We have Rebecca Skansky, who's our Digital Access Coordinator. Rebecca, in terms of history, worked at Council as a summer student a few years previously, so it's been fantastic to see her back in there. Back in that day, she was in the operations team, I believe. So, yeah, slight change of focus, but it's great to have you back in the district and also working at Council. We've also got Jane Riak, and she is our Community Engagement Coordinator. Jane has been in the community, building her networks, not in preparation for this role, but it worked perfectly, and has come with a full suite of people and connections to focus on this new role. So thank you very much, Jane, for that. And we've also got Rosie Twamley, and Rosie is our library assistant. Again, Rosie started her career with Council many, many years ago as an after-school student to start with, and then summer school student roles in both the library library in the museum, and now in a permanent position as library assistant after her university studies. So fantastic progression, and really pleased to have you back. So those are our new staff for today, and thank you very much. There are 4 service recognitions that I'd like to acknowledge, and as I call up your name, please walk forward towards Hamish and also the Mayor, so extra lucky you will be on camera. We don't do that to the new staff, we're fine. So first of all, I'd like to ask Jeremy to come forward. Jeremy is now one of our senior roading engineers. However, when he started in early January 2016, he was our graduate engineer in roading and safety. So Jeremy's progression with the roading team over the last 5 years has been due to his attitude, willingness to learn from fellow employees, contractors and consultants. It's been absolutely great to see Jeremy progress within ADC, and we hope he continues his career with ADC for many years to come. We also have a 5-year milestone for Peter York. Peter's role within council sits with the district planning team. So yeah, please go forward, Peter. And he's one of our resource consent planners. I remember when reviewing his interview notes that one of his motivations to apply for the role and relocate down to mid-Canterbury was to go tramping in the hills. Over the last 5 years, it's fair to assume that there would not be too many tramps, tracks or trails that he has not walked in the district. So finally, thank you very much for your commitment to ADC over the last 5 years. Another employee I'd like to acknowledge is Steph Fitney. Steph started at ADC on the 1st of February 2006, so she's been here for 15 years as the Property Information Officer within the finance team. In this role, Steph works very closely with quotable value and is responsible for maintaining and updating and creating our land parcels and ensuring that our valuation database is correct. During her time with ADC, although her position and core duties have remained rather consistent, she has also learnt a wide range of additional skills and helped out in many other teams when they've needed additional resource. This includes performing front counter services, becoming a GIS whiz, helping out in the property team, assisting with the rates function, and also the joyous task of our daily bank reconciliation. So, with all that mentioned, I'd just like to say thank you very much for your past and ongoing commitment to ADC. And finally, but not least by any means, our last milestone and employee that we'd like to acknowledge is for Andy Guthrie. In a professional capacity, Andy started at council on the 7th of February 1986. And to save everyone doing the maths, that equates to about 35 years. Looking back, and through Andy's personal file, I hope, but I can't guarantee I've got all his position and correct titles, but here goes. Andy first started at council in the library in a 1-year fixed term position as a research assistant following his time at high school. He then worked as a labourer for 5 months for Ashburton Borough Council, assisting with water main installation and road construction. Following this, he was appointed to a role of engineer technician, later on drafting engineer, design draftsman, and during the course of this time he also achieved his New Zealand certificate in civil engineering and became a registered engineering associate. And he then progressed to Water Services Engineer, Water Services Manager in 2001, and more recently accepted the position title change to Assets Manager. So your career is 35 years long with ADC, and we hope it is yet more to come as well. Thank you very much. And we are done. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and well done to the long-serving staff, especially Andrew for 35 years. That's a long commitment of time, and well done. And may the others get there shortly. And to the new staff, welcome, and welcome to the ADC. And I'm sure you'll enjoy your time here for how long it is. But you've got more than 35 years you can do more than 35 years here, is proven. Yeah. So we'll break now for a cup of tea. All welcome to join us. We may have to spill back into here, but grab a cup of tea or a juice or something and have a wee chat. And we'll come back at 3:30, councillors. Thank you. Take two.
Don't alter. Welcome. Now.
Welcome back, councillors, for the afternoon tea break. Just reorganising the agenda a bit, and I'm just going to go to item number 13, which is the Mayor's report. I'm going to get that out of the way because I have another appointment coming up shortly, so I'll get that out of the way, and then Councillor McMillan, the Deputy Mayor, will take over if I'm not here to conclude the meeting and let you get to watch a boat race, I think, if you're interested. So item number 13, Mayor's report. I'll take it as read. Item number 7, the National Policy Statement of Fresh Water. Myself and a group of us, 4 or 5 others, travelled to Wellington. We had a meeting with Damien O'Connor and David Parker, which was arranged by Joe Luxton, which was good. So we had a very good, robust discussion, and there was good engagement, and it was very largely a positive meeting, and the Minister Parker confirmed that he didn't want to see farmers off their land. So it was a good positive. And he did acknowledge also that there were some unworkable parts to the regulations, but they're committed to resolving, and we're going to see something around that on the winter grazing, he said. And I think it was yesterday or today, they've come out with Southland, they've extended it out for 12 months, the winter grazing rule, to let farmers, give them more time to adapt. So he is true to his word. And also to get the Ministry for the Environment to work with us and the Regional Council to find a way forward to continue the traction that Mid-Canterbury is already doing for fresh water in the district. So, but whatever happens, the group will need to have a hui with all the stakeholders, which means probably the fed farmers, the fish and game, the dairy and zeds, the beef and lamb, primary industry groups, etc., as well as our whenua and ECAN, and we'll be doing that in the next month or so to continue that along the path. So I see hope out there. It's better than what we thought. There is hope, and that next step is engaging with all those other parties to come up with the right solution. And one other thing the Minister did say was a generation. He said you've got a generation to sort the issues, and a generation, he said, was between 25 and 40 years. That doesn't mean you start at year number 39, you start today, but we've got time to get there. So that was a key thing. So very good, positive meeting up there with him. So, yeah, we're on the right path, I think. Anything else? Yeah, I just got the recommendation. Are there any other comments on the Mayor's report? Angus.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for your trip to Wellington. Sounds as if you might have got some understanding there. The trick now, I guess, is whether ECAN will listen to you and the Minister. Hopefully they will. But I'm actually very pleased, Mr. Mayor, to see an item on the Lower Rakaia Rating District and the Ashburton Hines Drainage Rating District in your report, and I think that's to be congratulated. Other people supplying you with information. I read in the newspaper, Christchurch Press, a wee while ago, that we were involved in a group at the Rangitata River. So I wrote to the Chief Executive and I found out, yes, we were. And so I can't remember us as a council ever agreeing that we do that. And on river rating districts and zone committee and road liaison and stock water committees, this council has always nominated someone if they decide that the cause is worthy enough. So I'm wondering, Mr. Mayor, if the Chief Executive could bring us a report on this Rangitata group that I read about in the newspaper that we have made no decision as yet on, please.
Okay, I think that is entirely possible. Hamish.
You're certainly happy to bring that report before Council, just noting that all other representatives are at the staff level, but I'm happy to have Council decide whether representation is appropriate and bring that report to you. There
are two bits to the story. I'm quite happy with the staff. there, but there is a governance group, and I guess that's where, should we be involved with the governance group or not? And
Yeah, and
maybe I'll wait for the report.
Yeah, the body of the report should say that, I would imagine. Yeah. Thank you. Do you need a recommendation of that, or just take it on board? You'd like to move that we receive a report on that, Angus? And John, second. Any discussion, debate? If not, put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Another recommendation there that council, under the Regional Event Fund, that's the dollars given by the government for tourism to bring into the district events. So there's a recommendation there that council appoints Deputy Mayor Liz McMillan as council's representative on the Mid-Canterbury Events Funding Panel. Someone like to move?
I'll move that.
Sure. Second it. Councillor Brown. Any discussion? Lane, street light on? No. Put the motion in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And if there's nothing more on the Mayor's report?
I've just got one
right.
comment, sorry. On the river rating district, so I haven't written a report on the Dry Creek River rating meeting that I attended on the 9th of February, and purely because there were 2 ECAN staff, 1 ECAN councillor, myself, and 1 ratepayer. So there was very little discussed, except there was a question on the biodiversity grant that council had available, and I just provided those details. So I don't know if you want that in writing for the Mayor's report in 2 weeks, or whether a verbal report is satisfactory.
If it was in writing, which is just a couple of lines, would be fine, and then it gets recorded in there, so that would be great. And other councillors who have been to river rating districts, if they'd like to send their couple of lines in, doesn't have to be lengthy, paragraph, or any other things you've been to on behalf of council. Stuart?
Yeah, Councillor Lovett was at the Ashburton Hines drainage rating.
Okay.
District 2.
Right, we'll take note of that. I think I'll move that we receive the Mayor's report. Second it.
I'll second.
All in... I move. Yeah. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item is elderly persons housing. 124. Yeah. Elderly persons housing policy. There's a recommendation there. Tony or Mel, anything further to add? Questions?
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Cameron.
I've just got a question which is an unusual question. New tenants wanting to keep a cat must provide council with a copy of a desexing certificate and proof of vaccinations for their cat, which I totally agree with, by the way. But why are we mandating that tenants that live in council housing have that?
Thank you. Through the chair, I think in the past we've had a problem with breeding cats within the elderly person's housing.
More so than elsewhere, is what you're saying? Ah.
All cats should be desexed.
Oh, totally. Shouldn't be cats.
That's a bit harsh. Councillor Brown.
I don't have a question, to be quite honest. I'm quite happy with the recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
And I would move that.
Oh, there's a question. Yeah, okay. If you want a second, then we can take your question. Liz, want a second or not?
I can second you, sure.
Okay, then our question off you.
Just a question. So number 6, smoking. I'm presuming e-cigarettes is the same as vaping. Is that correct? Good, thank you. And I thought the animal section was very, I thought that could have been made a little bit simpler, but that was just my view. I guess you're covering everything there.
Cover all the bases. No further question? Carolyn.
Yeah, one question about again on the smoking thing. I understand we have a public health obligation to make sure that people are healthy and living the best life they can in terms of their health. But is that outside our remit to mandate no smoking, as long as are you talking about smoking inside the house, or are they allowed to go on their porch, or what's the deal? You got inside there, but they're allowed to go on their porch?
Through the chair, yes, they are.
Because I think we're probably overstepping the mark if we start telling people how to live their lives,
Councillor Floon.
Yeah, thank you. Just coming back to the pets, is it really only cats that they're allowed? They're not allowed guinea pigs or other small pets such as, or birds or rats or whatever?
Thank you, through the chair. That is covered off under 7.2. So if someone had a particular desirable pet like a budgie, then that would be on discussion with Colin's team.
Okay, no further discussion, no right to reply needed.
No,
I'll put the motion on in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Now Liz, I'll hand over to you. I've just disappeared. We're up to item...
Can I just, Lynette sent through a message saying there was nothing on behaviour issues.
Of the animals or the people?
I'm presuming people. I don't know if Tony heard that, sorry. Lynette just sent through a message asking if there was anything on behaviour issues at the elderly person's housing policy.
Through the chair, no, I don't think there is. I think Councillor Colin might better just elaborate in terms of if there are behaviour issues, what the process would be from a landlord perspective.
Yes, so from a landlord's perspective, every tenant is entitled to quiet enjoyment, so the council would have to do something about it if one tenant was impacting on the quiet enjoyment of the other tenants within the block.
What's Liz taking the chair on?
We can now hear you, Lynette.
Neil's gone.
Yes, thank you.
So any behavioural issues, we would deal with those on a case-by-case basis, and the tenants are entitled to have quiet enjoyment of their occupation of their units. So it's just really on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. And I've just taken the chair because Neil's had to duck away to an appointment, so that's why I'm here. So thank you. No more. Lane, you've got a question?
Yeah, just it will be in the rental agreement, would it? There would be something in the rental agreement telling them that.
Yes, that's in the Tenancy Act.
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. So we will move on, and the next item is item number 10.
Was only mine.
Lynette and Diane, we can hear you.
Okay, so we are on page 132, Draft Development and Financial Contributions Policy 2021, and we have Richard and Tony at the table. Does anyone have any questions on this? Richard, would you like to comment first? Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amongst the pile of papers that was on your desk when you arrived is a reprint of schedules to this policy, and I just wanted to draw attention to that because there were some errors in the schedules that are part of the agenda in Stella. Essentially, most of the corrections have no effect on the overall development contributions. They generally tend to relate to things like the number of connections, etc. But there is one schedule where it does have an impact on the development contribution number, and that's in regard to Ashburton wastewater, where the impact is a small reduction of around $125. So in terms of an introduction, I just wanted to draw that to your attention and ask that if the council is of a mind to accept the recommendation, it would be on the basis of those amended schedules that have been tabled. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Falloon.
Thank you. I note under bottom of page 35, one of the disadvantages is less consultation. I wouldn't have thought that was a disadvantage.
Was that page 135?
Yeah, bottom. Oh, great.
Oh, yes, point 8.
Just a comment.
Was that a comment, a question?
Comment? Don't want to reply? What?
Just wait while they're finding a page there. Yeah, Richard, do you?
Yeah, no, I think that is something of an error, and I appreciate Councillor Falloon's observations.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Madam Deputy Mayor. Page 167. I continually ask, why do you use August 2004 Auckland figures for these benchmarks? Obviously, it has no relationship at all to Ashburton, because our household consumption per day is 760, even with a 50% loss, is still miles above what central Auckland is. To me, it should be relevant to what our district is, not to Auckland 2004.
And I continue to respond that the reason that we're using those figures is that we don't have anything better to rely upon. I would like to see the day when, as a consequence of introducing universal metering, we can develop something that reflects consumption patterns in our district.
Any other questions on the policy? I just have one on page 149, and your Appendix 1 definitions and accommodation unit. Do Airbnbs, are they included in any types of accommodation, or do they come under
The difficulty with capturing Airbnbs is that when people build a house but don't ordinarily signal that they intend to use it for an Airbnb, that's been one of the major issues around councils who've tried to respond through rating systems with people who use residential accommodation for an Airbnb. You've got to identify who's using it. And typically, of course, because we take development contribution at building consent, you've got no idea what they or a future owner of the house might use it for.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mackay.
If I could help there, the Mackenzie District Council, for example, at Tekapo, if you're going to rent it for short term, you have to get a consent that limits the number of people that meets the services that are going in or out of the house. So maybe a chat with them may help, because they are looking in the background of rating accordingly in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Madam. Page 160. Hines Water Supply Development. Could you explain to me those figures across year incurred, proposed, the amount, the project factor, applied growth factor? How does that relate to Hines? Please.
That row which is described as recent reflects historical capital expenditure in that township. So the years incurred proposed, that's the years over which loans have been raised. The project growth factor is an assessment of the amount of the capital expenditure that was required for growth at the time that expenditure was incurred. This is a figure that was in the document in 2018 when I arrived. I can't give you any more detail on how it was arrived at. The applied growth factor is a number that reflects the anticipated amount of growth. So in this case it's 5.53%, and the council's policy is to apply the lesser of the applied growth factor or the project growth factor. Funding from other sources reflects the amount of the capital expenditure that is, and this is generally loan funded expenditure, which is not required for growth, and the funding from development contributions reflects the growth element. The development contribution is that second to last column at 9745 divided by the remaining growth capacity, in this case 8 units. I know that when we discussed this at workshop, Councillor Wilson, you were concerned that the amount in the column, the 176217, had actually increased, and I'm still working with officers to get an understanding of why that is, and if we can identify the source of it, I can report that back, and if we need to reduce the development contribution, then we'll bring that advice at the end.
Councillor Bram.
Thank you. I'm on 134, the Medford drinking water upgrade. Just, Richard, some clarification if possible, because we basically take something out and then it says on the other side their funding and any third party contributing to it. How do I read this? Basically we're getting above the cap of 2,500 and the other side, you know, proportioned DC for the cost of the work. So that could be more, or does it all stay below?
When we consulted last year, one of the consultation topics was what was the level of acceptable increase in development contributions overall. And you'll appreciate that for the reasons that because of the way that we calculate these things, on a township by township basis, apart from community infrastructure, which is across the district, we get different levels of movement from township to township. And council went out with a proposal that would set a ceiling at $2,500, and we heard, we read written submissions, we heard oral submissions, and council adopted that proposal. We've now added the LTP capex into the schedules, and we're able to work within that. If we had included the full cost of the Methven, included the cost of the Methven drinking water upgrade, that would have taken the Methven contribution well past the 2,500 increase, and the only way to bring it back to 2,500 is to reduce the community infrastructure, and because that is across the district, that reduction impacts DCs right across the rest of the district.
Thank you, Councillor Falloon.
On your summary on page 132, the first bullet point, updating the schedules and the development contributions to align with the draft LPT, and saying this is achieved within the previously consulted maximum increase of $2,500. Okay, we've discussed that, but just looking at that maximum increase of $2,500, is that for the length of the term of the LTP of 3 years or 10 years? That there'll only ever be a maximum of $2,500?
That would be for the 3 years of this policy, because it's council's practice to review this every 3 years in line with its LTP. It could be sooner if council were to make major changes to its CapEx within the 3 years, but at this point it's for 3 years.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, would anyone like to move that recommendation with the amendments tabled? Is that correct? Councillor Mackay.
Yes, Madam Deputy Mayor, I'll move the adoption of the draft development and financial contributions policy 2020-21, including amendments. And I'd like to say something if there's a seconder.
Councillor Brown, are you happy to second
Second
that?
it.
Yes. Councillor Mackay.
I particularly note in the summary on page 132, the last dot point, the methane treatment upgrade is proposed to be omitted from the schedules. The final configuration of this project, the catchment it will serve and the extent of the third-party funding are not yet to confirm. Very pleased to see that there, and I enjoyed reading the wordsmithing of that. Thank you to the officer, or thank you to the Chief Executive, because I can't thank officers.
Thank you. Any debate? If not, put the motion. Those for, say aye. Aye. Against, no. Carried. Thank you. So we will move now to item number 11, Ashburton Car Club Street Sprints, and we'll welcome Brian Firth and Reese up to the table. Thank you. So this is on page 168. Would you like to add anything, Brian or Reese?
No, it's pretty much as recommended, thank you.
Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Had a wee bit to do with this at the start, or late last year, and I'd be more than happy to move the recommendation as written there as a result of the toing and froing with the constituents earlier on.
Thank you. Councillor Falloon, would you like to second?
Correct.
Thank you. Any debate? If not, all those in favour? Aye. Against, no. Carried. Thank you. And the two of you will stay for the next item, which is on page 172, item number 12, Flying Kiwis Motorcycle Limited New Zealand Land Speed Record. Sounds exciting. So we have a recommendation on page 172. Are there any questions first? Councillor Brown.
Thank you. I've got a question. Just it's an open road. It's a rural road. If they find a bump and the thing goes pear-shaped, is that their cost or our cost?
All situations like that are at the cost and control of the organisers, not us in any way.
Okay, so we have no reliability at all if something goes wrong.
No, the liability in that rests with the club organising it.
Fully better. Thank you.
Councillor Falloon, question? Or
Yeah, question. 3 days seems a hell of a long time to speed motorbikes up and down a road.
I think it's more about the inclement weather, just making certain that they get enough of an envelope to actually do the runs that they require.
Councillor Mackay.
Flying Kiwis, are we concerned at all with the angle of the wingtips or anything, like most New Zealanders are at the moment?
I don't think they'll be up on their foils, no, I think we'll be right. Councillor Brown, another
If
question?
there's no more questions, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation as it stands.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Latham. Great, we'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, no. Carried. Thank you. So we will move back to item number 5, which is on page number 6, and we'll welcome back Tony. And we've just got some bits and pieces to be passed around. So this is the long-term plan 2021 to 31 consultation document. So we just had some bits and pieces to tidy up. We've got Paul here who can answer questions. So Councillor Brahm, you've got a question first. You haven't got a question? Would you just like to take... Paul, would you like to just explain what we've been handed out, or Tony?
Yep, sure thing. So what's been handed out is, went back through the budget pack. Apologies, I was incorrect. We have, what you're seeing here is what will be updated in the consultation document, particularly it's around option 1, our preferred option. We have spoken to Audit New Zealand and they have cleared us for this, so we can make this amendment.
Great. Everyone had a chance to read it. Councillor Wilson, you've got a question?
Yes, the only thing, and based on your property CV, will have to be changed too, I guess, because it's got the valuations.
Through you, Madam. The property ones were done in year 1, so it's the year 1 effect, so that doesn't change. So it was actually done on the right year 1 rate figure.
Yep.
Councillor Brahm.
If there's no more questions, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation, including the changes we just received, and that we go for the preferred option as it stands.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Falloon. Thank you. Yes, right, move into debate. I'm just going to take a quick screenshot of this to send to Lynette and Diane, so they can see that amended. Debate. Councillor Mackay.
No, I'm not debating, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'm wondering if I could move an amendment, please, to that.
Go for it.
Okay. Page 17 of the handout this afternoon, there's a box there, down in the bottom right-hand corner, and I'm wondering if the words "do not plan" be bold, please.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you. Does that need to be an amendment, or can we, when we move the recommendation, include all amendments?
Oh, I think it should be a resolution. If you're amending the document, I think Councillor Mackay is moving that those words be bolded, and if that's the will of council, then that's exactly what we need to do.
Okay. So Councillor Cameron has seconded that amendment. So now we...
So that's a motion.
So that's a motion.
If I miss out those, we do not plan, what does that mean?
Councillor Mackay, do you...
It means to bold them so people can see that we do not plan to.
So the amendment
Want me
will...
to read the whole thing out?
Yeah, the amendment will be on page...
I'm not changing the words at all, Madam Chair. Just do bold as an amendment to the motion, because there are already amendments in the motion.
Yep.
Have been recommended to us by staff. And on page 17 of the handout, we are losing up to 50% of our drinking water due to water to leaks. We plan to install water meters on all connections to our drinking water supplies for leak detection. And to bold, we would be all right, but to bold in black or bold blue, do not plan, so it's quite clear that we do not plan to charge for water.
Everyone understand that? So the words "do not plan" will be written in bold so that they stand out a little bit more to safeguard. Do you have a comment, Councillor Wilson? So do I need to put the motion first?
No, we have a motion that was moved and seconded by Councillor Cameron. So now that's open for debate or further queries.
So councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I'm in two minds. I agree with the motion in some ways, but to put it in bold, it's committing further councillors. I agree with what it says, but I'd rather just leave it in plain. Take out the second section. We do not plan to charge for water in this draft 10-year plan. Full stop.
I think, and we'll go back to Tony for this. This was to do with audit recommendation, wasn't it?
So we can't go and take that last part of that sentence out. We didn't have it in there initially, but we've been asked to make sure we have it in. But by putting that emphasis on the do not plan, that expresses your view very clearly to the community.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brahm.
Yeah, I can't understand why we're going to do it. We can't change it. We can only control the next 3 years. After that, there is a new council. So for us to say we can't review it after 3 years, not up to us. That's the next council. As it is, that's black and white to me. Don't fluff about with bits and pieces.
Right.
Clear.
Councillor Cameron.
Just, may I make a comment? I don't have a question.
Sure.
Are we in
We're in debate. We're in debate mode.
Yeah. I think, I think it's a small matter, but it does highlight it, and we did discuss it at length earlier on, and we did say this council, and we understood, did not intend to charge for water. So I think by highlighting it, we're just emphasising that we do not intend to charge for water. I don't think there's anything else mysterious in bolding. We do not plan. Well, we do not plan 4 words at all. So I think we should. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the previous 2 speakers. I think we're underestimating the common sense of the man in the street, really. They're pretty intelligent. They'll figure it out for themselves. I think just go with the way it is.
Right. So we will put the motion. So Councillor Mackay, the amendment. Councillor Mackay moved. Councillor Cameron seconded. So all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, no.
No. Any hands there? Yeah.
Sorry, Lynette, so you're a no. Diane, were you a yes?
Yeah, call for.
I'm going to have to call for names because we're all over the show. Okay, so we'll do this again. So those in favour, put your hands up.
This is for printing it bold.
Printing it in bold.
Yep.
No, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Carried. Thank you. So we're done with that?
Yep.
So we need to pass the whole.
Now becomes the motion.
Now the motion.
Yep.
Oh, right. Okay. So we'll go back to the motion. And who moved? Lane moved that, and John seconded that. So we'll put the motion. All those.
Sorry, Madam Chair. The amendment becomes a substantive motion.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, so it just needs to now be put. The amendment was carried. It now becomes a substantive motion that needs to be put.
Oh, okay. So all those in favour of that, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Lovely. Thank you. Fantastic. And that brings us to the close of the open meeting. So I will need someone to move into public excluded. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Brahm, all those in favour, aye. Okay, so carried. Thank you.